Recording in progress.
Call to order St. Joseph City Council meeting of September 5th. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. Let's see Randy, so public comments. Anybody wishing to speak to the council on something not on the agenda? Step to the podium, have at her. Item 3, approval of the agenda.
Move to approve.
Second.
Motion and second to approve the agenda. We're gonna add something in there, David, right? One like 8.5 maybe, or 9.5?
Let's go 9.5.
Okay, 9.5. We have to talk about a change of venue request. Motion and second to approve the agenda with the addition of 9.5. All those in favor signify by aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries, okay. Item 4, consent agenda.
So moved. Second.
Motion and second on consent agenda. Issues or concerns? I'd like to just pull 4E, Dwight, so we can just,
Yeah,
everybody understands what's going on, okay?
same here.
Motion and second, consent agenda for A through D. All those in favor signify by aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. 4E, just, I'm gonna lean on you a little bit, Dwight. I know it's going through the state and you've had some discussions, so you just wanna bring us up to speed what this means.
Yep, so basically I don't know the exact, how many years we've had a agreement with the District 742 as far as having a officer that does frequently go down to the school. We don't actually have a dedicated officer that's a school resource officer. We do have a joint powers with 742 that we go down there when we can. Underneath that joint powers, we're actually technically an agent of the school, even if we're down there only for morning drop-off. I know the question's been raised a lot. Why don't we go to the St. Joe Lab School like we do with Kennedy? We don't have a joint powers agreement there as well. So most of the times we're down, and a lot of it's been since the new Kennedy School, there's been a lot of traffic, and we just feel by having an officer there alleviates a lot of congestion during drop-off and pickup. Unfortunately, there's been some language change. There's been a lot of law enforcement around the state that doesn't agree with the language change. And it's not that any officer intends to put any pressure to the person's head, neck, or chest area, but it does take away the ability to restrain an individual that might be aggressive as well. And staff is not allowed to do that. Just general law enforcement is allowed to restrain staff or children or whoever we need to, but underneath this new legislation, it does put some restraints on there. So looking at some of the, I've been in contact with the superintendent from the school district, Lori Putnam. She's fully aware that St. Cloud, Wade Park, and St. Joe, the 3 that have the agreements, are all planning on just suspending it. It sounds better than terminating it. We're not technically terminating it. We still will respond to calls down at Kennedy for assistance. None of that will change. And then watching at the State Fair, Governor Walz has hinted towards the fact of calling a special session just to clarify this language, just to make things just a little bit cleaner. So that's where things are at right now. We kind of followed St. Cloud's lead on this one because Chief Oxton said it sounds better if we suspend indefinitely until new language can be drafted rather than terminate. It sounds a little harsher. So we're just gonna suspend indefinitely until language can be cleaned up, and then hopefully we'll enter back into a new agreement with the district.
Thanks, Dwight. I just wanted everybody to be on record for that. Yeah, Kevin?
So are we still gonna have an officer at Kennedy every morning like we have in the past? Is
Well-
that contract or is that arrangement still in place, or is that no longer in place?
It would be my intentions to do so. Obviously, the city of St. Joe, and without a agreement, will not receive a financial contribution from District 742 as we have in the past. But it's not like officers are gonna go hang out at Quick Trip and just do nothing. I mean, we'll still, patrol and be in that area. St. Cloud, just to kind of lean on what they've done, Chief Oxton has said, even though they have 5 or 6 school resource officers that are dedicated to be in the schools, and even though they're gonna suspend until this language could be cleaned up, they're still gonna have what he calls a robust presence in the school. So take that for whatever you want. The officers were still gonna be going there, But some of these schools that have had plainclothes officers may now be in uniform because they're not gonna fall underneath the SRO program, but they're still gonna have a presence, and that's kind of what I've said as well. I think a presence is still very important for us to be down there, so we're still gonna be there. It's just that with the suspension or with the joint powers not being there, officers that are working day shifts will not be an agent of the school
Got it.
in the,
Okay.
in the legal sense.
Well, I'm glad we're still gonna be down there in the morning when they get off the bus.
Right.
Thanks.
Yeah. Thanks, Dwight, for clarifying that. I need a motion and a second.
Move on E to approve.
Second.
Motion and second for E. All those in favor signify by aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. Item 5, conditional use.
Yes, good evening, council and mayor. If we can flip over to the input. Awesome. So for your consideration this evening is a conditional use permit request for a special event facility. This has been submitted by Cobb Land LLC. The special event facility is a proposed 14,500 square feet facility in the northeast corner of property addressed as 28617 Jade Road. This is southwest of Kennedy. Just some background, the subject property is about 60 acres and zoned rural residential with a future land use of low-density residential. The council did approve an ordinance amendment in May of this year. That ordinance amendment allows a special event facility as a conditional use in the rural residential districts. The Planning Commission held a public hearing on August 14th. The applicant was the only one who had spoken. We did receive some comments by the school district, St. Cloud School District, in regards to this proposal. The commission recommended approval on a finding of fact with conditions at their August 28th meeting, and that was a special meeting that they held. Here's a site plan of the proposed site. So the facility itself will have one access off of Jade Road, and that will be a looped access with the drop-off and turnaround near the front. There will be 3 parking lots on site. There will be a outdoor ceremony space in the northwest corner of the building, along with some patio space on the north side. This site plan, just for context, is essentially looking north, kind of northwest into the, or northeast into the adjacent property, which is a residential property to the north. Some interior renderings. Here's the depiction showing that outdoor ceremony space in the upper right, along with the formal dining area, an indoor ceremony space, reception area, and a bridegroom dressing room. Some of these pictures might be a little hard to see on the PowerPoint here, but we did go on site and take some pictures of where the outdoor ceremony space is proposed to be. Essentially, the site has a bermed area on the northeast corner of the site. That bermed area is about 10 to 15 feet from grade to the top of the berm. So this first picture here on the top is looking directly towards that future space. The building would be, of course, in front of that space with the ceremony area on the exterior to the north. Couple more pictures. Essentially, one things we noted on here were the property itself is heavily vegetated with topography changes throughout, but on the berm area, there is a lack of vegetation and trees and shrubbery on the top of the berm. The Planning Commission, again, did recommend a finding of fact with conditions at their August 28th meeting. Some of those conditions are highlighted there, and that's per ordinance. Those are the typical conditions that can be placed on a proposal like this. One of the conditions that staff is recommending is that a development agreement is executed as one of the conditions of approval. And that development agreement essentially spells out the required water and sewer extensions. Initially, we did have language tied to a right turn lane. We did remove that due to that not meeting the thresholds for needing a right turn lane at the moment. This next graphic depicts the sewer water extension. There is some disagreement with the applicant and then staff's position on this. So staff's position is that that water and sewer extend down to their driveway entrance. The applicant would like the sewer and water to extend to just their facility and not down to the driveway entrance. This is a unique situation. In a typical subdivision or plat, the developer is required to extend their water and sewer from the beginning of the property line to the end of the property line. There's no platting, no subdivision with this. So staff felt that appropriate ask or middle ground was to get that water and sewer extended to their driveway entrance. I would like to go through the recommended conditions of approval that the Planning Commission did recommend at their meeting. Some of this is just template language, like the first one. I have highlighted in orange some concerns that the applicant has stated, which was also included in your packet in regards to their response to some of these language and conditions. First one just talks about proper permits. The second one talks about submitting a site plan application and all the site plan requirements met. So that includes lighting, parking, typical site standards. The third condition is that a development agreement is executed. Again, that's the water and sewer lines, where there's some disagreement between the applicant and what's recommended here. 4 talks about lighting, and all lighting shall just be full cutoff style and hooded. 5 talks about parking, and all parking being met on site. 6 talks about the outdoor spaces should be fully screened with a year-round living fence. And that can be accomplished through a variety of things, including trees, shrubs, and fence. And again, that's coming forth too in regards to that outdoor ceremony space and the lack of any vegetation on the top of that berm. The city, of course, has the right to inspect. Number 8, we do talk about noise generated by the facility, and we talk about any amplified sound shall be inside of an enclosed building. Or speakers or similar devices are not allowed to be placed outside unless it's part of the ceremony proceedings itself. And of course, any noise shall meet the city noise ordinance. So again, what's in orange is kind of the language that the applicant has some concerns on. Liquor ordinance being met, outdoor ceremony space is restricted between 9 p.m. and 7 a.m. Sunday through Thursday, and then 10 p.m. to 7 a.m. Friday and Saturday. We talk about any large gatherings or events of 50 people or more shall be restricted to private events. 12, the proposed accessory structure. There is a accessory structure that the applicant is proposing on the south end of the property. The Planning Commission had added that the same or exterior building materials for that accessory building shall be completed. Right now, our rural residential ordinance does exempt accessory buildings from the typical standards found in our code. The typical standards are that the accessory buildings do match and that they're located in the rear yard. Rural residential exempts that, so they can place the accessory building in the side or the front and do not have to match that. 13 just talks about the right to revoke a conditional use permit. 14 talks about expiration for the conditional use permit. And really that number 14 is meant if there's no progress being made, as in there's no plans being submitted, there's nothing, then that permit can expire. 15 talks about if there's any changes as determined by zoning administrator or planning commission, that the applicant will need to seek an amendment to the conditional use permit. And then 16, this is another hours of operation restriction. And the hours of operation in here are 8 a.m. to 9 p.m. Sunday through Thursday, and then 6 a.m. to midnight Friday and Saturday. This is way too difficult to read.
Thank you.
Yes, so essentially in your packets, the applicant did submit a hours of operation request or consideration.
Oh, go back a second. That was,
Yes.
please, just, the reason I want you to go back is I couldn't read it in your packet. I mean,
So I'll highlight that. So during the weeks that school's in session.
good. Yeah.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, so they highlight the weeks that school's in session, talking about Monday through Wednesday, cutoff times, Thursday and Sunday, and then Friday and Saturday. Also talking about summer hours and then holiday and holiday eve hours as well. I don't know if the council wants me to go through that individually or,
I needed to read it because I couldn't read the,
okay. Okay. If there's no questions on that, if we can flip back to the PowerPoint.
yeah. Good.
So again, the action requested tonight is to adopt a finding of fact with conditions, and the council does have the right to add, eliminate, or place any other reasonable conditions to that finding of fact resolution. And again, what's included in your packet is what the planning commission had recommended for conditions of approval. With that, I'd be happy to answer questions.
I think for the most part, it looks like they really work together on trying to find a happy ground. My question is just twofold here. First was just, why do we have to put I mean, is that within the permit of noise? I mean, the music is gonna be within, and so I think the question is just having speakers outside mainly for the ceremony, to my understanding, when I had asked questions in 3 different areas. And so I think they would comply. I think that they have been very welcoming of questions and working with that. So I don't know why we have to be so stringent on that. And if they were going to have something outside, they would have to come for a permit anyways, right? Just like the city, like businesses do. Am I correct in saying that?
No. So part of the CUP is to put those conditions in there, right? So if you limit it to the hours, then that's what they're held to. If they were to go outside of those hours, they would have to seek an amendment to their CUP.
But the mainly, what the planning commission was music outside. That's kind of their operating.
Yeah,
That's what they were
so
kind of wanting to look at because they're restricting them from cleaning up and stuff like that. So I would probably want to put some wording in there that their working hours would be longer. They can't get out of there after the wedding is done at 10. They got to clean up, they got to get things taken care of. And that would be part of operating hours.
Mhm.
And so, I mean, unless I'm misunderstanding it, but that's how I'm reading it, is that the planning commission is saying everybody's got to get out of that building by 10 o'clock. And normally, if you're doing a wedding or an event, because I was the event coordinator, there's absolutely no way they're going to get and clean up. Even though the wedding might be done at 9 or 10 o'clock, they got to clean. And there's no noise problem there. They're just cleaning and trying to get out of the building.
Could I just, similar to closing bell time at Sal's or La, all the customers have to be gone and they can stay to clean, do whatever they
Right.
want after the fact.
Correct.
That's what they're referring to.
Right.
That the
Correct.
event is done and operation of the building and the event is done, but there's still, who's ever necessary to clean up and stuff, just like Sal's, the La, any other establishment in the city.
Well,
Correct.
that's not how it's clarified, so that's why I just would want to clarify that, just to make sure that that's, because,
Councilor Biniak, so you're talking about item 16, essentially, that the hours of operation
Yeah.
for the facility itself. Yeah, I think the intent of the planning commission was that, yeah, that event is over at that time. You know, they recognize that there's time for cleanup and other things that are gonna have to occur. But those are the event proceedings and such.
okay. And then 8, just the noise ordinance. I mean, what was the planning commission on
I think,
speakers?
yeah, so I think the planning commission's more or less concern was just tied to being able to have some limits on like music and, you know, they didn't want it to get away from, they understood and recognized, I think, that there's gonna be light music maybe that's played as part of ceremony proceedings, but didn't want to have the potential opportunity for that to escalate into something else.
So any noise during a ceremony, that's a broad word there. I mean, because they can say, and I'd like to introduce so-and-so and so-and-so, and woo, is that a noise ordinance?
Yep.
And so we'd like
There's
to
some gray, yep.
clarify. Yeah, I would,
Yep.
and then that point, I'd probably like to clarify.
Yep.
But those were my two big concerns.
Bob, you had some concern?
Yeah, I'd like to see that time frame between 8 and 10 on that Sunday through Thursday, because any wedding that happens.
16?
16, any wedding that happens or event happens between Sunday and Thursday, it's gonna be a late start wedding in my books. And, you know, you have to give them enough time to have the people having the ceremony, to have the ceremony. You know, that's kind of stringent, you know, 9 o'clock.
Start at 8, end at 9, on Sunday through Thursday, 6 to 12,
Yeah,
on Friday, Saturday.
just for event planning and so
Yeah.
forth and so on. I mean, 10 wouldn't be so bad.
I'm looking at number 3 and number 8, and I'll start with number 8 just to echo what Kelly said. I think a lot of the disagreement that maybe occurred in the planning commission was related to like outdoor speakers, and I don't see the problem in having speakers outdoors if they're already abiding by the noise ordinance. That'd be no difference than me having a bonfire and playing music in my backyard, or like anybody else
Yeah.
having noise on their personal property. So if they happen to have speakers outdoors, sound amplification systems, I don't see that being an issue if they're abiding by the noise ordinance.
If I may ask on top of that, they have to comply with noise ordinance, correct? I mean,
Correct.
there's nothing different there.
Correct.
Yeah, okay. Thank you. Sorry.
And then going backwards to number 3, what is the benefit to the city of St. Joseph if they take their water and sewer all the way to the driveway?
You wanna talk about
Because
this,
if
Randy,
we're
or you want me to?
placing that upon them,
Mhm.
I feel like there should be some great benefit to the city to burden them in that manner.
Yeah.
Go ahead, I can add.
Yeah, I guess I want to speak generally. So typically with development, you have the property owner, the developer bring it to the end of the property line, meaning then it's available for the next phase of development so that it's there. You typically would get pushback from developers saying, you know, I only need it this far or whatever, but typically the response from the city to that developer is, well, somebody paid to bring it to your property line, so now you bring it to the next property line.
Right.
And that's where this one was a little bit, I know that's a phrase that gets used a lot, is that it's a unique situation. This one was a little bit different because it doesn't end at their property line. They're not picking it up at their property line. They actually have to go get it and bring it to their property line. So that's where, in discussion amongst staff, we looked at, well, what's a reasonable compromise for that? That's where we thought about bringing it to where their driveway access is kind of a reasonable difference from how far they had to go get it. So it's, the next property owner would be in kind of in a similar situation. So that was the thought process on it. So that's the benefit to the city is then it opens up that next property for development. Okay.
So in each case, there's gonna be a little catch-up with this line, going down Jade Road or whatever.
Yeah, this was a little bit of a unique situation in the fact that they had to go get it. It wasn't already at their property line.
Okay, Bob?
Also
Just
on
like-
that, it would prevent disruption in the future of their property when development extends to the other direction. You know, say you put a lot of money into your driveway and landscaping and all that stuff, you know, they'd have to dig all that up, you know. And then the city would end up paying for that unless you signed a waiver that you would pay for any future disruption in your property to extend that line. You know, it's kind of a, catch-22 situation.
Randy, you wanna add anything?
I was just gonna share a graphic to help corroborate what David just shared. Okay, I'm plugged in now. All right, so the green and blue lines that you see, the color green is sanitary sewer, blue is water. So try to give you a sense of the distance that staff were trying to reconcile and David was describing. The applicant's property is this rectangle shape here. Sewer and water presently is up to this point at Jade Road and serves Kennedy School. And so that additional distance that David was describing to get to the start of the applicant's property line would be this distance. Traditionally, as David described, we'd look for developers to extend utilities across their full length of their property. In this case, as David said, we're recognizing that not all of the property is being utilized, and that initial phase of development is in this quadrant. So we're trying to reconcile or at least account for that additional distance here that would have to be traversed to get to their site. The driveway entrance that is on the exhibits that you see is roughly here at this location, and I think there's an outbuilding that shows on their exhibit. You can kind of see that brown rooftop here. So to Councilor Sapaniak's question, you know, when we look at other developing properties, the city has had a development plan for what we've called the Archon property, and so we ultimately envision utilities will be brought down further south than past the applicant's development plans. The other exhibit I would show that supports this is from the 2006 water distribution study. So this is one of our planning documents for where the big pipes will cover, and this is Jade Road here, this blue line. I-94 is all the way down at the south end. So we've contemplated Jade Road having a trunk water main for some time, and this just gets, this development is one more piece in that development puzzle, if you would.
And so they're just taking care of the cost of what's in front of theirs, correct?
Yes.
And then go back to that other picture then of the map. And so they would take care of just that from that corner of to their driveway.
Staff are proposing, yes, this distance
Okay.
from the Kennedy School driveway to their driveway, which is, I'm gonna write
They
my
would
cursor.
take care of that?
That would be part of their expectation of development
That's not
costs.
their land though.
Well, that's why the utilities are proposed to be in the public right-of-way. And so the city would grant permit access for those pipes to be in the street right-of-way.
I don't think it's right that they should pay for piping going not in front of their land. I definitely agree that they should pay for what's going across their land.
Well, who's gonna pay for it?
Exactly, if we're gonna be building out here and there's gonna be residents coming out here, it's not any different than we're running the sewer out here and there's not even businesses coming in there yet. So I don't think it's fair that they should pay for in front of their land. It's not any different than, I'm not gonna go pay for my neighbor's sewer being hooked up. Why would I do that? I would say definitely charge them from the corner of their land all the way to their driveway. And we have to pick up the rest. How we do that, I don't know, but that would be my suggestion.
All developers have to pay for water and sewer going across their land.
Going across their
When they
land.
initiated the development. And then the standard procedure, if that's the word I should use, is to have that developer pay for oversizing, whether, I don't know what that would be.
That has
To the
been,
next border in order for the next development to pick up. Otherwise, you'd have to disrupt the other person's property to extend that. Then they'd probably have to double pay because they have access to water and sewer on the rest of their property.
that has been your practice,
Right.
at least during my tenure as well.
Yeah, my lifetime too. So, I mean, that's part of development, the cost of development, which is every developer has it. They recoup that when anything down the road gets developed. You know, they pay for that up front, and then when the next piece of property gets developed, they get that back. Whether it's 2 years or 50 years. Am I correct on that?
If there's a recap, there's some nuances to what you've described. So
Okay.
if there's a subsequent public improvement and there's a recapture agreement, so there are some other details of when that happens. More traditionally, the oversizing costs are borne by the development.
Right, I mean, we've had that instance with Hyde and Herges with the Pond View. I mean, there were certain little segments of development where they got some money back.
There's a number of instances. The business center, the 2019 business center, those are trunk utilities that ran up. Those were oversized as part of
Yeah, but
that
that's a
project.
what if.
There, no doubt, every project's unique.
I'm just saying, if you don't do that,
Yep. I know.
there's disruption in the future that could cost you money to redo what you did already.
So a couple of things that I heard from the council, from some members, is I heard concern in regards to the language on condition 8, tied to the speakers and outside sound. We could just state that the noise generated by the facility needs to meet the city noise ordinance. I don't know if that's the consensus, but I'm just trying to recap. And then also, condition 16 in regards to the hours of operation, specifically Sunday through Thursday. And that ending at 9 PM. And so those are the couple that I heard. Other thoughts?
I have a comment.
Yeah, go ahead, Kevin.
So the third thing you could add to the list, Nate, is that I don't agree with not requiring the applicant to put a right turn lane in. And I recognize that there's not traffic volume yet, and the city engineer or county people said that it's not required based on the number of vehicles going up and down Jade Road. At some point, we want the business to be successful. We're gonna have development out there at some point. There is gonna be more traffic. It's a narrow road without shoulders now, or the shoulders aren't that wide. And with the expected and hoped for amount of traffic in and out on the day of a venue, I think a right turn lane isn't asking too much. And that's how I feel about it.
Is it, I know with the intersection of Jade and 121, we have a contract with the district when that intersection becomes untenable based on volume, that they have to partner with us to, actually, I think they may be on the hook for it, I'm not sure.
Yeah, the development agreement provided for, if a signal,
Yeah.
for example, became necessary because of traffic operations, that was a requirement in the development agreement.
So we could do something in the developer's agreement saying when traffic becomes blah, 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 the developer, the tenant would have to require, we'd have to require a right turn lane. I
At
mean, I'm
that
not sure what,
time? You mean not right away?
yeah, not right
At
away,
that time?
but that's
So
why,
if it
that's
be-
like the developer's agreement with the district. At some point when you can't cross anymore, we're gonna have that discussion with the district, and it's in their developer's agreement. We could do the same thing, I think, with this property.
So like, for
I don't
instance,
know that.
when the threshold meets the MnDOT requirements for a
Yeah.
right turn lane, then it
Right.
needs to be put in, something
Right,
like that.
Something like that.
Okay.
And I don't, can we do something like that, is kind of the question.
Yeah, and I guess the answer to that is yes. And to be fair, Councilmember Kluser did ask me that question earlier today, and I needed to get back to him, and things kind of got away from me today, so I did not call you back. I apologize for that. But yes, you can put those in development agreements, and hold the property owner and theoretically, potentially future property owners to that as well. And so the question was, who pays for it, and how do we enforce that? So the question is, yes, we can have the developer pay for that. My suggestion would be, before that development agreement language was adopted by the council, I would like to have a contract expert attorney look at that, to make sure that it is enforceable. Because it can be very nuanced in that, and that's why I would I would recommend that we have somebody that really specializes in those types of contracts look at that.
Yeah, I would like that too, because, I mean, I don't see a turning lane having to be there. I mean, Rolling Ridge is right on a main highway, and they do not have a turning lane, and they do just fine. So, I mean, sitting down and talking with the developer and maybe checking on that to see maybe if they're okay with that, if it has to be ordinance covered, but I don't see why there needs to be one there.
Well, the reason we put it in with Kennedy is because we know the volume is gonna increase on
Well,
121J.
Kennedy, but not are you
And-
saying
and
at
you-
the business?
Let me finish. The only reason I'm asking to put it in the developers agreement, because should it happen to increase in traffic, we have it available to build at that point. Not that we're requiring it now, but that we kind of protect our interest on traffic going up and down Jade Road when it develops, as it develops.
So the right of way would have to be set aside.
It would have to be at some
I
point,
mean, whether.
during
it exceeds
part of the
what's
develop, part of the
already
plan,
there.
part of the site plan, I think, yeah.
Now, I got a question on that, and this road doesn't meet the threshold of the engineering standards. Well, it doesn't.
From a volume perspective.
Right, so-
And that's just one criteria.
Yeah.
If you looked at the language, there's several, it gives you some discretion with respect to the criteria.
Okay.
ADT, or average daily traffic, is one of them, 1,500 vehicles per day. The most recent traffic counts from 2017 would suggest Jade Road is operating below that threshold
Right.
today.
I understand all that, but I'm looking at the legality of the city requiring a right-hand turn lane and who would pay for it since it doesn't meet the thresholds of the, you know, American engineering standards of whatever.
In this case, we
acronym
can
you
say
wanna throw
MnDOT.
on that.
Yeah.
Yeah, but this is Minnesota Department of Transportation.
Okay. Is it MnDOT that has the,
These
Yeah.
are MnDOT's guidance from their
Yeah.
design
Okay.
manual, yes.
that's just the only question I would have on something like that.
And depending on how that language would be crafted, you could probably put in something tied to like, you know, this threshold should be reviewed annually, you know, as things change or progress, that it's reviewed, you know, once a year to see if that threshold may meet the standards.
Yeah, I think, I'm just trying to think of the contract with District 742, and we did have legal look at it. We know it's legal, but I just don't know what the criteria is for changes to that intersection.
I don't think, if I remember correctly, it wasn't even detailed in terms
Yeah.
of certain thresholds. It
Right.
was saying if it was determined operationally that a signal
Yeah.
needed to go in,
Yeah, okay.
that the district would participate.
Okay.
You know, if I may clarify just one thing, Mayor, and I guess when I was saying, having them look at it, I was saying not just for the legal part of it, because those types of agreements are legal. I was looking more at the enforceability of it, because that's a higher bar than just the legality of it, to make sure that it is enforceable and and it's more importantly collectible.
Yeah, we enforced it once already, I'm pretty sure, when they had some turnaround problems with drop off and pickup.
Yeah.
Anyway,
So another question, so if the applicant wanted to put a right turn lane in, would we have, or would the city engineer have any problem with that?
No, it's much like stop sign warrants or signal warrants, you want to have a set of conditions of when you should look at it, but it doesn't prevent, in this case, it doesn't prevent an applicant for constructing a right turn lane or a bypass lane for that matter.
Okay.
And so there are geometric standards for what a typical minimum turn lane would look like, and that's what we would look to enforce.
So I'm just gonna put myself in the applicant's shoes, considering the amount of investment to bring sewer and water, to build out the venue, to meet all the other requirements. I don't know what it costs to put a right turn lane in, but as a convenience to my clients, customers, I would consider adding it. That's just my 2 cents. We can move on.
okay. So, Nate, here's what I have. I have removing, kind of removing number 8, except for any noise during the ceremony meets noise criteria. You got that? Counselors, you okay with that?
Meets the noise ordinance.
Just meets the
Yeah.
noise ordinance. The orange stuff is, I mean, it's really particular, but I think as long as it's meeting city noise ordinance, we're good. Adding, again, whatever the right turn lane, into the developer's agreement upon whatever the MinDOT standards are, and making sure that council or contract language is set aside. What was the other one? We had 3?
So we have hours of operation. So right now, we had the hours of operation from 8 AM to 9 PM, Sunday through Thursday. I think the concern was 9 PM for that.
So-
I didn't catch what time was the preferred.
Councilman Wilson, you said 10.
10? So, along those same lines, I know Gary Ganji had some concerns about traffic and during school hours and stuff like that. Did we meet his needs? Because I know that drop-off pickup, 4 PM, 3 PM in the afternoon, and if they're bringing stuff into the event center, whatever, could be a concern. I don't know that it is, but
Yeah, so I'll recap it real quick. So a lot of the concerns I would have brought up from him was tied to the County Road 121
Yep.
and Jade Road kind of intersection.
yep.
There was some concerns regarding the blind approach to the school entrance, and then the school zone speed as well. Right now, that school zone speed ends, it's kind of by the ball field area, so it's not to this property. And from my understanding, they were looking into a little bit about what would go into maybe expanding that school zone speed, if that would even be an option.
I see.
Yep.
So, it's kind of to parlay on the contract with the district, if the event center goes forward and increase traffic, and it causes problem during drop-off pickup, does that trigger us then to, hey, district, you have to redo the intersection? Know what I mean?
Well, I think what we've seen, at least with the drop-off, the pickups and the drop-offs, it wasn't necessarily intersection
Yeah.
capacity, it was capacity on the district site to stage vehicles. And so that was a bit of the challenge or the misnomer, is that, well, if you constructed a traffic signal on County Road
Oh, I
121,
don't want,
all the problems would go away.
How large is this facility? How many people can hold the capacity of this? It's approximately 250, correct?
The building capacity?
The building
The spe-
capacity
Yeah,
itself.
how many people can actually be in that building?
I don't know that offhand.
I believe it's
250, 300. 250.
250. Okay, so I'm thinking, you guys are making it sound like there's gonna be 1,000 people coming in and out at drop off and pick up at school, and that's just not gonna happen. I mean, I'm sorry, again, worked Paramount Theater, that was downtown. I took care of the traffic, I worked with the police officers. You're not gonna I mean, I get it, that they need to be concerned and can probably draw some, but it's not to that extent that they are, I mean, you're making it sound like there's gonna be 52 million people going through that drive, and
We're probably talking 100 cars.
not at once, not to
No,
drop
not at
stuff
once,
off.
but overall.
You know, I mean, when they're setting stuff up, I mean, it's not that intense. I mean, I agree with maybe slowing down the, you know, if it's down to 20, I can understand that. I can understand, a turn lane or more of a, whatever, when it comes to the futuristic of the main highway to the school. But a turn lane into it, I don't agree with. I don't think it's gonna be that intense.
So, yeah, and I don't disagree with Kelly. I'm not looking for 52 million to go up and down Jade Road. I'm looking for actually the intersection itself, because the intersection is where the issues are concerned. People taking lefts and rights in and out of 121 and Jade Road during that time. So I'm just covering, making sure Ganji's okay on the concerns he brought up. And if he's good, I'm good. Yeah, we will someday. So that was so if we change hours of operation from number 16 from 8 AM to 10 PM on Monday through Thursday,
Okay.
right? That, right,
Yeah,
you're okay with that, Bob?
that's the
Counselor, you
consensus.
okay with that? Okay. So, do we pass it with those contingencies, or would he come back?
So you can pass it with those contingencies and changes, correct?
Okay.
Yep, so it'd just be essentially those changes would be highlighted in that finding of fact
Okay,
resolution.
so I wanna make sure I got it right. Finding of fact, right turn lane development will be in the developer's agreement. We're gonna, so kinda remove that or whatever, however that sounds. We're gonna go number 8, just any noise that meets or doesn't qualify for city noise ordinance. And then hours of operation change from 8 AM to 9 PM, Sunday through Thursday.
One question,
Change it to 10 PM.
Oh,
Yeah,
sorry,
Yep.
sorry, my bad. 8 to 10, I shouldn't read it, okay.
and then is the consensus also that that water and sewer get extended to the driveway entrance? I did hear a concern in regards to that.
I think we should.
Okay.
Okay, so, so my motion is to approve findings of fact, including the additions we just made on 2023-042.
Second.
Motion and second, resolution 2023-042 with the conditions we've met and those, yeah, Bob.
One item of discussion, we haven't gotten the applicant's opinion on what we've done.
We don't-
So I don't know, are we open to listening to,
We don't need their, we have them right here.
yeah? well,
Motion and second, 2023-042 with the conditions stated and the changes. All those in favor signify by aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Very good. Thank you, guys. Variance request, item 6.
Yeah, so I'll just briefly highlight this one. So, variance is being sought also by Cobland LLC. They're proposing to surface the 3 parking lots within the special event facility with gravel. The driveway entrance and drop-off area will all be paved with asphalt. Our city code does require surfacing to be paved with asphalt or paver materials. That includes parking lots or any circulation areas, drop-off areas, anything of that nature. The Planning Commission did review this and recommend denial on a 5-to-1 vote at their August 28th meeting. The biggest, the reason why they voted as such is when we look at our variance criteria, we do have one item that talks about the plight of the landowner is due to circumstances unique to the property, not created by the landowner. So they cited that in their recommendation to deny the variance on a 5-1 vote. We did hold a public hearing. We just heard the applicant speak at the public hearing at the Planning Commission. The council does have the right to impose any conditions on a variance, and we have included 2 resolutions, one which would approve the variance request and one which would deny the variance request for your consideration.
And so to my understanding, just to clarify, they don't want to pave it?
The parking lots, no. So they'll pave the driveway and the circulation areas and the entrance. Everything will be paved except the 3 parking lots on site. They're proposing gravel.
Bob?
In the past, we've relieved, I think, Gooden Company of that requirement, and I'm thinking of somebody else.
I'm sorry, say that again, I didn't hear that.
Good and company.
Okay.
We've already set precedence on this by not requiring Gooden Company to tar their parking lot or their lots, which would have been required under the rules. And I'm looking at that out there, and, you know, they're gonna pave the approach area and around the buildings and whatever. And I'm looking at, you know, runoff, you know, with pavement, you're gonna have more runoff and et cetera. This way you'll have natural consumption of the waters and stuff like that, because there is a hill up there into the natural surface. So I think, you know, since we took the requirement off of Gooden, I think precedence has been set where we could alleviate from that based upon the fact that there'll be less pervious, there'll be more pervious surface with eliminating that.
There's a difference between industrial and commercial too.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd have to agree with Bob. I think if they're agreeing to pave the majority from the road all the way up, and then of course their approach is my concern was for handicap, you know, things like that. And as long as they're covering that, and of course they have to, I don't see why we can't comply for them.
I think, and then just to be considerate of the cost of this project with, we're gonna require them to extend the sewer lines to their property line, which I don't know what the dollar amounts are versus paving versus non-paving. That might be a wash there if one is granted and, you know, I mean, it'd be a good gesture on the city's part, I think. I'll move to that effect, if possible.
I
would second it.
So that's approval of the resolution 2023-043?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, I'm missing is 43, the
For their,
variance is
For
it
them.
allowed?
Yeah,
Okay.
approval. Yep, the resolutions are numbered the same, the denial and the approval.
Okay, motion second on 2023-43, variance exception approved. Other questions or concerns? All those in favor signify by aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Nay.
Nay. Motion prevails 3-2. I think we should be done with those. Item 7. Lori?
I don't have much to report other than what I already provided in the staff memo in your packets. So I briefly summarized what we are anticipating for 2024 for the capital projects, which we presented to you back in May, I believe it was, with the engineer. We kind of went through some of those projects, and the ones listed are the ones going, that was determined to go forward. Wanted to just bring up the attention that St. Cloud does have a couple sewer projects that have to get done. The main sewer lane, force mains, are getting to a point where for one capacity to just corrosion, it's, I think, 60, 70 years old. And those are the main force mains going through really handling all of the wastewater for the whole area. So they do need to replace those. They are applying for grants and that sort of thing, trying to bring down the cost. Our costs will be a little bit lower with our selling some of the capacity to the city of Foley, so I think it's like a little over 8% would be St. Joseph's responsibility. There's some more upgrades that need to be done at their main lift station, which is the last lift station right before it goes to the treatment facility. They've been doing some work, but they're finding some corrosion in a couple different areas in their control systems. So they're looking at those two projects, so I just wanted to bring that forward because I don't think that was presented to the council earlier. Usually in November is when they'll have the next meeting, just kind of bringing those closer to a reality, so they kind of gave us the heads up already. It has been on their plan, in their 5-year capital plan, giving us the heads up. It's time to bring them forward now. As far as equipment, it's almost a full page of equipment from each department. In 2024, we do not have an equipment certificate, so it's actually a little bit of a slower year for capital replacement. The larger replacements typically happen when we do the equipment certificate years, which we're getting ready to issue one here in a couple weeks for 2023, and then the next one will be 2025. And that just helps us level out the capital equipment purchases for things like we had to replace a front-end loader this year. Very expensive piece of equipment. To replace that and to get that into the budget in our 5-year capital plan, we would have to really increase the levy by a lot. So the debt levy kind of keeps us a little bit more equal throughout the years and being able to prevent some of those spikes and valleys in our budget. But I did give you a budget book with a listing that details out all the equipment and the projects, and it's kind of split out by the departments. The EDA and the Park Board have reviewed their projects as well this summer, so you have those proposals from them as well. So if you have any questions on any of it, Bob?
What's the timeline on the upgrades of the St. Cloud the sewer system?
They're doing pre-design right now.
Okay.
So over the winter months and, early next year will be design, construction, bidding, and I think later in the summer they're looking at. Like the force main, they're looking at, do they need to reroute it, or do they continue in where it's at, and it has pros and cons both ways, so that's what they're kind of trying to figure out, that final alignment right now.
Okay, so we're looking at a 2025 capital outlay?
Yes, likely. They've applied for PFA loan. They've been pretty successful in getting those, and we get to be a benefactor of those with the low interest rate. And so with a PFA loan, we only start paying once they start drawing on the loan. So it's a pay as you go.
Okay.
So the first, year or two, it's actually a low amount that we would pay. We
Okay.
will have to pay some design costs up front. So that's probably coming towards the end of this year,
Okay, okay,
our share of the design costs.
all right. No real numbers yet on what we're in?
They have an estimate, a preliminary estimate of that force main being from 20 million up to 25 million, and we're about a little over 8% of that.
So we're roughly 10 million.
It was about,
I mean,
I
give or take.
calculated, I think it was around 1.6 million was our share,
Okay.
1.6,
Yeah,
1.7, somewhere in there.
I misspoke there, I was thinking different numbers.
Lori, how much does each year of meter conversion cost us? And how far out?
We've done between 150 to 175,000. We're trying to double that so that we can get this done within 5 years.
Okay, that was kind of my question on timeline. Okay.
So Vicki and I actually met with Waterworth that did our rate analysis for water and sewer.
Yep.
And so we're starting that again to update that and seeing how well we can get to doubling closer to, $250,000 to $300,000 worth a year.
Okay. Council, any other questions on what she's got here? This is just feedback, right? We're not
Just
doing anything?
feedback. Your next meeting, we will have the preliminary budget, so we're just kind of finalizing what some of those operations are.
Okay.
I did get feedback from the county that our market value increase is estimated around 7%.
Okay. What was the question? Preliminary, when we have to approve the preliminary budget, what's the date on that one?
September 30th.
30th, okay.
So is the budget book gonna be like a work session kind of thing, or how do you, normally we've kind of gone through those things on, we don't,
The next meeting is,
I
there's a
know.
meeting before a work session.
Yeah, I guess, I'm not sure what the past practice has been here for that. I mean, if it's been working, I guess we would follow that. Really depends on how in-depth you want to go into it. I would kind of hope we're not going to go line by line on it.
I want to line by line.
yeah, we're not doing line by line anymore, Bob, that's
Why?
out. But I thought we've sat down and gone over some
Yeah,
pieces of it in past years, or haven't we?
I remember.
We've gone through some
I
of
remember doing
the
that.
summaries on it. We've kind of taken it by piecemeal, so we've kind of talked about things at different
Okay.
workshops. You just haven't seen the whole picture together yet.
And that's what this book is, right?
This right here is the capital equipment
Yep.
and projects. I don't have the operational number in there yet,
Okay.
Or you have a revenue number?
not yet.
Okay. Have to have all three of them.
Yeah,
to see what's going on.
We're
Okay,
getting very close to
Okay.
getting that number. This week I'll have it. I'll
Okay.
Okay.
kind of know where we're at.
so feedback, as you see it, read it, send back to David, Lori, and we'll move from there, okay? Are we okay with that? All right, park design.
Yes, so East Park, we're trying to stay on our trajectory for gearing towards spring/summer 2024 construction. So with the executed grant agreement from LCCMR that occurred at the council meeting on August 7th, and then the DNR grant agreement that we executed last August, where the next step is essentially looking to Randy's team, SEH, to do design proposal and agreement work. That's going to include delineating wetlands, topographic surveys, preparing construction drawings, and estimated to cost $82,000 that will be reimbursed as part of the LCCMR grant funds that we received. So the proposal is just for that agreement and scope of services.
Bob?
I believe that has to go to the park board for approval, then pass through to the council for approval. In fact, I know it does.
The proposal does?
Yeah.
Okay. I wasn't aware.
Because you're, you're expending money through the park board. I mean, the park board operates on a different, its own entity. The only thing that the council does is approve their expenditures. Anything over 3,000, unless that number has changed since I've been around.
Okay. I guess I'm not aware of that. Yeah, we were just following up based on the grant agreement that the council had executed for that next step.
I guess we'll research that as far as what the practice is on that. We'll follow what the practice is.
If you go back to the enabling, it used to be a park commission,
Yeah.
and that was changed to a park board. And then that has a whole gamut of different rules on it that, you know, a lot of people aren't aware of.
Makes sense.
What, I just have I was around this time, I just don't remember it. The agreement of professional service from July 1, 2006. What does that say?
It's just the master agreement, so,
Master Park Plan?
no, actually just the master engineering agreement with the city. So it doesn't have any relationship to the park board. So all of the engineering agreements that you have executed since 2006 reference the master agreement
And-
between us.
And I'm not trying to pick on SEH, but couldn't we open this up to any engineering firm to do?
You could.
Like, take bids? I mean, SEH doesn't know that land from anybody else. I mean, they really don't. I mean, my recommendation is to open this up to bids and get some other estimates from other firms. And then send that to the park board for recommendation.
Well, and is this coming from the park board budget?
I don't think so. I mean, it's
Is it?
monitored by the park board because it's facilities, but it's
Right,
really
but
grants
it's
and
not coming out of
grants and
our
aids.
budget, right?
It's basically reimbursed money, so.
And it-
Lori can speak on where we're pulling the money, but as we submit those reimbursement requests, then, you know, they're gonna reimburse that money.
Yeah.
But, I mean, Lori can speak on the,
So we do have just about $1 million in grant money that is going to be reimbursed. And then the city council had set aside $300,000 from local option sales tax, that was one of the transfers that you approved
That's what I
tonight,
was
is to
gonna say.
move that $300,000 in. I do have it in the park board fund only because it's a park.
Yeah.
And having a placeholder for that project.
And being a member on the park board, we have talked about this, so this has, it's not like, we have talked about this, and we have talked about what is coming up with so it's not like we haven't. I just didn't think we had to vote on it, because the money wasn't coming out of our budget.
and so correct me if I'm wrong, Counselor Beanick, I think the last action that the park board had taken was in regards to the overall scope and site plan of the proposal when we were going through the grant agreement and stuff, and
Right.
rephrasing that. So they had to take action on that, so the
And-
scope
Right.
matched what the intent was.
Yes.
But as far as Counselor Loso's question as to if it has to go back to the park board for this, I don't know the answer to that.
Well,
Yeah.
from what I all know, when I brought this ordinance or enabling ordinance back in 93, 94, and it hasn't been changed since, that the park board has to. I mean, it's a technicality, but, yeah.
Well, councilors, I'm asking your opinion. Can we open this up to an SRF
I like that idea.
and give more architectural firms a chance to look at the land, come back with a design architectural proposal for East Park? And let the park board review and pick and choose who they want. I mean, it may be SEH, it may not be, but, I mean, I'd like some other perspective on what we could do with that park and how much they could do for us, knowing that the first phase is canoe launch and kayak launch and stuff like that.
So you'd like to have an RFP?
Yes, sorry, RFP, yes.
I knew you were looking for it.
Oh, they all got jumbled, yes.
Yeah.
RFP, yes, sorry. So can we do that?
You can.
Again, do we need a motion or?
No, because you'd be bringing it back for,
Right.
So I think just a consensus and giving council direction, council giving staff direction, and then we would bring it back for action.
Very good. So the action is, let's open up the RFP to other architecture firms and get some estimates and what they may do. And then let Park Board run through those.
Well, a question to that then.
Yeah.
Would we still be able to stay on that timeline that he's got here?
I looked at the
So-
timeline, I'm not sure it's tied to anything, is it?
So that timeline is what we had indicated in the LCCMR application. It's not like cutoff dates per se,
Okay, so
there's
it's
flexibility.
not tied to the grant or anything?
Yeah, I would say the
Okay.
one thing that may be some slight concern is part of the scope is to do the delineation of the wetland. And I believe that starting typically in early October, we can't do any more delineation. So we'll have to get a RFP out quick and try to get that turned around to get that going, to stay on track. But that's the one caveat, I would say.
What's the drop dead date in October? Where you can't do anything?
31st, Halloween.
The growing period for what they consider active growing periods for
Yeah.
wetlands. So I
Okay.
think it's October 15th is when the state and regulatory agencies considered the cutoff.
Okay, all right.
Nate, you good?
Yeah.
Okay. Item 9. This is the lobbyist contract.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor, council members. Hopefully this one should be pretty quick and straightforward, because council has discussed this and given direction previously for this. So we were directed to contract with Flaherty and Hood and bring back a proposal for that contract to lobby on our behalf for County Road 2 infrastructure extension in the upcoming bonding bill and to advocate for the community center project. I guess I made an assumption when I spoke last time. I just assumed they would have Marty Safer doing it, but in speaking with them, they think that the two that are listed there, Eric Simonson and Darren Lee, would probably be the best two for this particular type of project, so that's who they're recommending. Contract would call for a fee of $20,000, paid in 2 increments of $10,000 each. So with that, that is staff report, and we're recommending approval of the contract.
So moved.
Mayor, are you comfortable with that? Because you had named a person that you
Well, I know,
felt more
yeah,
comfortable with.
and I know Eric. Eric's
Okay.
a former legislator, if I remember right. And now he works for Flaherty and Hood as a lobbyist. So yeah, Eric and I
Okay.
know each other really well.
Okay.
I don't know about Darren Lee. I probably see him by face, but don't recognize that name.
Okay. I just wanted to
Motion?
make sure because you felt very
Second.
comfortable.
Okay, I'm fine. Motion and second, approving, going forward with Flaherty and Hood lobbying contract. Other questions or concerns? All those in favor signify by aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion does indeed carry. And we included an agenda item 9.5.
Okay, thank you, Mayor and council members. We received some communication today about the Rocktoberfest, which is scheduled for, I believe, September 30th. That there was an error in the application. The location is incorrect. It shows 32 West Minnesota Street, which is the location apparently where it's been previously. However, they were intending to move it to the vacant, or the church parking lot. I believe that's used for Joetown Rocks and that. They want to use that location. So the problem with that, though, is with special event permits, those require a public hearing, and that public hearing then notices have to go out to property owners within 350 feet of that particular event. So with that moving about half a block to the east, that changes who gets the notifications. So we wouldn't have legally met the notification records on that. So what we would have to do then would be for the council, if we're going to accommodate this, would be for the council to call for a public hearing at our next council meeting, which is September 18th. which would give us enough time if we get the notices out here by Friday. I did have our city clerk do the proposed 350 feet from that particular area, which is we've used before, which is pretty well known because of Joetown Rocks. So we would be able to get those out pretty quickly because you have to have a 10-day time period for them to be able to come back in. So we'd hold the public hearing then on September 18th, and the council could approve it at that point. One of the caveats on this, though, is unfortunately, we have to go through all the same process and all the same work again, so we would have to then charge the same fee for this particular process. So that is what we would need to do if we're going to accommodate the request, and I'll take any direction from the council. Otherwise, if the council concurs, a motion would be in order to call for the public hearing, and I apologize, I don't have the address of the vacant parking lot, but I believe we have that. So we need a motion to call for the public hearing.
I move to call for a public hearing on September 18th for the Rocktoberfest, and I'd also add to that motion to waive the fee for the clerical error of the address. I don't know if that was the intention to have it in that place at first.
Just, Bob, it costs us money to do that. The fee is part of our cost incurred.
Right, I understand that.
It wasn't our mistake.
No, it's not our mistake at all.
Okay, okay.
Separated into two motions.
Yeah, separate it into two motions if you like.
Okay, fine.
Want to restate the motion?
Bob, which motion would you like us to move on?
Public hearing.
Second.
Motion and second to schedule public hearing for the Rocktoberfest new venue location for October 18th. Questions or concerns? All those in favor signify by aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries.
Okay, I
Okay.
would propose to, first of all, so I'm not uninformed, how much is the fee and all that combined?
$500.
$500.
And the clerical error was on the applicant's part, not the city's?
Correct.
Yes.
Okay.
I'd move to waive a fee of $250 off the fee.
Anyone want to second that? Hearing no second, it dies.
I tried.
I get it. All right. What's left?
Your report. It's all you.
Oh, me, yeah. So I have two things, comments. Last council session, I made a big to-do about parking downtown, what had transpired. And I met with La, I met with Dwight, I met with Josh, and by no means did I mean to disrespect the Joe Boys. You know, they're a good organization, they do fundraising for a variety of causes, and that wasn't my intent at all. I think I was trying to pinpoint the fact that there was a violation. I don't think the city responded quite as promptly or in due cause, and the process has to change a little bit. I was only trying to highlight that. No disrespect to the law, no disrespect. There was communication problems with Joe Boys and the law, and I think even the PD, you know, on those people on patrol versus getting supervision, there was some miscommunication there as well. So no disrespect at all. But we had a good conversation about, you know, changes that might be made. Number two, I received a call from, tell me what this place is again, Kate? Modern Barnyard. And I reached out to Randy because they heard that the bridge is closing. And Brian at the APO says, yeah, the bridge is closing. They're not gonna do one side and the other side, they're closing the bridge. Stearns Bridge by Fleet Farm. 75, that bridge is closing sometime in late October, November. Brandy, correct me if I'm wrong here. And so I asked Randy to reach out to Stearns County engineers, and they have proposed like a couple of detours. Now, I'm not sure, is this 134? Yeah, okay, so one of the detours, so Modern Barnyard and Opie's are gonna be concerned, but now everybody that's going to 75, like through Division, is gonna have to turn at 134, snake through back roads by Westwood, and then come back on Wade Avenue. That's one of the proposals. and I don't know that people know this yet, and the other one was, and I don't really understand this that much, but it's going, using County 2, right, out to 94, and then back the backside.
Oh, God.
One, is that 138?
Holy moly,
Yeah.
Rocky.
Boy.
So you're gonna see some potentially intersection issues at 275 and 94, and you're gonna see some at 134 and 75, the increased volume. And so I think, just me, we should probably, if Tropic isn't aware of this, they should probably be told about this at some point. And maybe some of the other businesses like Jenny Transport and Knife River and some of those guys that go up and down the road. I mean, I heard this was coming, but I didn't really know exactly.
soon,
Yeah, it's like October, November, and it's gonna last till like April or May of next year.
Oh,
Right,
really?
Randy?
Seriously?
Yeah, all winter
That
long,
long?
all winter long. It's
It's
a
gonna
bridge,
ruin my commute.
it's a bridge,
Right?
it's a bridge replacement. And they
Okay.
chose not to do one side or the other side, you know, zigzag. They said, we're knocking it down. It's less
Winter.
expensive, it's quicker. So we should publish this or start informing
Yeah.
our transportation people in the industrial park. This is coming, it's coming soon. And we maybe even want to inform businesses, hey, this is coming, it's coming soon. I know what we can do about those commuters going through the city, but
Everything.
I know St. Cloud is our main, but can we post this in St. Joe's paper too?
we probably should. I mean, the newsletter.
I know St. Cloud is our main, but.
We should contact Janelle about this and say, do you want to let everybody know?
That would be great.
If they're
I mean, it's-
closing the bridge entirely, you can't legally access Modern Barnyard.
Yeah, you can. It'll
If
be
you
open.
drive over the median, you can.
Yeah. 'cause
Oh,
it's,
my God, you're
right.
right.
They are-
You
You
are
cannot
right.
legally
Wait,
access
oh,
their business at all.
Oh, wait,
They've indicated that they will cut a temporary
taper-
crossover
okay.
because the bridge will be closed.
good one. Because you used to be able to
Good
go there.
call.
That's right.
That is right. They changed that?
So anyway, Opie that wants to go into St. Cloud across, he's got to go all the way back and then out again. Those two businesses I feel bad for.
It's gonna be horrible to have a pizza delivered to Obie's.
Well, not Gary's, but.
So, yeah, so from a communication perspective, the city should take charge in our industrial park and our transportation corridors, you know, the industrial part out there. I don't know, whoever else we think, which, we should talk to Janelle, see if we can get something in the newsletter about this. I don't know if we can do anything for the commuters. And now, Dwight, if you need to, I mean, there's not much you can do, but I think the traffic will shift somewhere in the wintertime here.
On 121.
Well, I think, yeah, they could be going down 121, not 94. They could be cutting through the city to get to 138 instead of 94. So downtown traffic could change as well. Anyway, so those are the two big things I had. You guys have any questions or concerns? Item number 11.
So moved.
Second.
Motion second to adjourn. All those in favor signify by aye. Aye. Opposed? We are adjourned. Thank you all very much.